Recently, I was asked about punching hammer eyes, specifically punching them by yourself by hand. So in today's video, what I thought we'd talk about is the tool you'll need for punching by hand and a little bit of how to get that eye to be straight and centered. So as you've just seen, I resized a piece of material. This will be our starting material for the drift. I'll recommend that you start with 1-inch round, just flatten down on two sides. This is basically what the finished shape of the eye will be. I like to start with the punch, the same size the final size of the eye will. That way you have a good starting reference. We'll just go from here. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to start drawing a taper. Just going to do a two-sided taper. You can see here, my taper's a little bit off center. I'll just flip it over, give it a couple hammers from the other side. Set that taper up a little bit. This taper's still really shallow, so I'm gonna start pulling this taper back. As you can see here now, my taper is roughly 3 inches long. Still a square taper, so I want to start rounding those corners off next. So just come on this diagonal. If you look down the punch here, you'll see that knocking those corners in has widened it out some. So I'm going to come back in, push that width back down to the length. So what I'm looking for is I want this punch to be able to release once I drive it in. So it has to be a nice, constant, smooth taper all the way down. Get a very nice finish right out of the forge. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cool down. We're going to work on the point. So I want the point of my punch to be about a ½ inch thick and 3/4 inches wide. So I'm going to just kind of come up here, 3/4 inches wide, roughly right there. And right there is also about a ½ inch thick. So I'm just going to scribe that line off and then cut that, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so I made a little calculation error. I want the end of the finished punch to be about a ½ inch by 3/4, maybe even 3/8 wide. I cut it at that dimension, but as I ground back to get my shape in the end of the punch, it got bigger. So I'm gonna go back in, I'm gonna forge this down a little bit, and make it hopefully the right shape. Mark this before I heated it up, but this is a 4-inch long billet. Just gonna mark it at 2 inches. It's 1.5 inches wide, so I'm gonna mark it at 3/4 of an inch. There's the center of my billet. If I can take my punch, just a light blow, just kind of eyeballing that straight along the center line. Light taps. You can make any little adjustments here, just kind of seeing if that's straight. Looking pretty good. I'm gonna get a bigger camera. Battery died. So I'm pulling my punch out every heat, and I'm turning it 180 degrees as well, because my grind's probably not symmetrical. So this way, I'm going to get a more even punch. Alright, so we're getting to the point where our holes almost halfway through. Probably gonna take one more heat on this side, and then we'll flip it over and start punching in from the opposite side. Well, that's how you do that by hand. Takes a lot longer than the power hammer. Hope you guys learned something. If you didn't, well, watch a different video. You'll learn something there. Make sure you subscribe and like and share this with your friends.